Okay, I'm gonna do a install slash review video on this Panasonic 200 CFM ERV, model number FV-20VEC1. I was doing research for a ERV for our house. I built the house in 2012 time frame. Didn't find one at that time that I liked. Didn't know if I needed one. So here this spring, well, actually this winter, decided I finally wanted to put one in. Doing research, like I said, I didn't see any good reviews or really any information at all out there on this model in particular. Panasonic had a 100 CFM unit. There's some info out there on that one, but I didn't see anything on this unit itself. So I guess I'll start with overall, I really like the unit. It's very quiet, very low power consumption. Right now I'm running it at 80 CFM on the supply and 60 CFM on the exhaust. I'm running that 20 CFM differential just to keep positive pressure on our house. Try to keep the dust out. And you can see it's running right around the 30 watt range, which that equates to about $2 a month. I run it 24 hours a day. Have it tied in with our HVAC unit ductwork. It's got multiple options on how you can install it. I chose to do a separate grill for the pulling the exhaust air out of my house, and then for the return air, supply air going back in, I have it dumping into our HVAC return duct. And then it has some distance before it actually gets to the HVAC so it can circulate, mix in with the existing air, and get spread throughout the house. Our HVAC unit, I always have the fan going, so I didn't need to wire in the fan switch, the HVAC fan switch for this ERV. Inside this cover, it's got an option where you can wire in your HVAC fan controller, so when the ERV kicks on, it will also kick your HVAC supply fan on. So I guess back to the unit. For the install, I elected to wall mount it. The manual gives you the option to wall mount, floor mount, or hang. I did the wall mount, mounted it on a piece of rigid foam, with the thought that if it had any vibration, or just to try to dampen any noise that it might create. But this unit is so quiet, it doesn't make any noise at all. You don't know that it's running unless you stick your hand over the outside on the suction and discharge line to know that it's actually moving any air. So like I said, I did a wall mount. For the power install, you need to do a normal wall plug. Obviously that's what this is. That's the power supply. The wall switch gets wired in. That's a recommended install. You want to shut off the wall switch before you do maintenance. That gives the internal dampers a chance to shut before you open the door. The door has a safety switch that shuts it off when you open it, so the dampers don't have time to drive closed. This wire flex conduit here is going up to the wall mounted controller. I elected to buy the wall mount controller versus relying on these controls here, just dials, exhaust air, supply air, and minutes per hour runtime. So, like I said, for the wall switch, that's the manual wall switch. My thought there was I went with the Leviton Wi-Fi control wall switch. That way I could shut the unit off from my phone if I had a situation where I wanted to shut it off and I wasn't home. My thought being that in the summertime when the dew point's high in the morning, if I didn't want all that humidity going into the house, I could shut it off, wait for the dew point to get at a better level, and then I could turn it back on. The only problem with that is with the wall controller, when you shut the power off, it shuts the unit down obviously, but you turn it back on, the wall controller is digitally controlled, so it does not turn back on. You have to physically push the button to turn it back on. Whereas if I didn't have the wall controller and I turned the power back on with the wall switch, it would default back to whatever these were set at and just come right back on. So the summertime, if I get to the point where I'm needing to turn it on and off to fight the dew point humidity in the house, I will lift the power wire going to my wall controller. That will default back to this controller, and I will operate it that way in the summertime. The way I run it, it doesn't really matter. These would be just as good. I just like having the wall controller so I can see the wall controller has humidity, temperature for both the inside and outside air, so it's handy, convenient. So I will go ahead and open the door on the unit, show you what it looks like inside there. I'm gonna not use the wall switch to shut the power off, just so I can show you a few things on the inside. So here's the inside of the unit. I open the door without shutting it off, and you can see that damper there is open. That would be the suction air, would be the new fresh air coming in. And then on the other side, there's it's split down the middle here. On the other side is the old air going out. There's also a damper there. Both those dampers are open. Here's the wall switch, or the door switch button that essentially stops everything, shuts the motors off, locks the dampers in position. Since I opened the door and the controller upstairs has it in the off position, if I push this button, those dampers will drive closed. You can see they're driving closed. And now all the dampers are closed and the unit is essentially sealed up from the outside air. So, like I said, this line here is my fresh air supply being sucked into the ERV for my cold side. Essentially, cold side is everything on this side of the ERV. Hot side, warm side is everything on this side of the ERV. So for my cold side, outside ductwork, I used drain, waste, and vent 6-inch PVC. Inside, I insulated that ductwork. So yeah, this is the fresh air coming in, comes in, goes through a MERV 13 filter. That's what's supplied with the unit. Goes through this core, the heat exchanger core. It's supposed to transfer the heat and humidity, keep the indoor heat in, outdoor heat or cool out, outdoor humidity out, indoor humidity in. Like I said, it goes in the core here, magically goes through, and that air ends up on this side of the unit and goes through that ductwork, dumps into my HVAC return line. At the same time, for the stale air going out, exhausting, I have it coming from that line, which if we go on the outside of that wall, I have it coming from that vent, following that stud cavity, going up through that ductwork, through this filter. It doesn't have to be as good of a filter because that's just the air going out. Essentially the indoor air should be clean anyway. Through the core heat exchanger to this side of the unit, out this ductwork and outside. So for my cold side ductwork, just the way my house is laid out and where I had to install it at, I was worried about condensation building up in the lines since they go vertical on the outside of the house, and in the summertime, if there was condensation that builds up in those lines or any moisture at all gets in those, I wouldn't have any way for it to get out before it dumped into the ERV. So I have this line from that elbow over to this drain line sloped down towards the valve, and my thought was that I would install drain loops off of that valve, have a water leg, and then I could run it over to a floor drain. And I have the same thing for the other line as well. I've been opening those periodically. They haven't had any moisture in them, so so far I don't have that problem. I'll keep checking them in the summertime. I haven't ran this through the summer, so this summer I'll check it, and if I need to run drain lines, I will. If not, I won't worry about it. One thing I have noticed that on this door is this filter kind of likes to flex back and forth, so when you close the door, you got to make sure that this little tab falls in that little slot in the styrofoam. So I'll close it. One more thing I've noticed is this, when it's cold out, there really isn't any seal here. The cold air gets down to here, it transfers, and the cold air transfers to this. So if they were to change anything, or something I might add later, is to get another piece of foam like this and add it up a little higher so it seals here so that cold air can't get down to there. I close the doors. It closes the wall switch. You saw that light come back on. So the unit's ready to go. Safety switches are closed, but it won't turn back on until I go upstairs to the wall controller and push the on button. As far as the physical size of the unit, it is probably, I would say, about 3 feet wide by 2.5 feet tall by 1.5 feet deep. So it is fairly substantial compared to the 100 CFM unit, but it fit good where I had planned for my install. So now that the unit's off, you can see that between the green light, the wall controller, and this little watt meter. It's using 8 watts. If I were to unplug the unit itself, I think the watt meter is still going to show 5 to 6 watts. So just with the unit off between the wall controller and the lights and any other power consumption in the unit, it's about 3 to 4 watts when it's off. And then we saw earlier when it was running, it's about 28 to 30 watts, $2 a day. So one thing I haven't done yet is calibrate the ductwork pressures. That's what these ports are for. There's essentially one in all 4 of the chambers. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the way I installed my unit, I really only have one damper that I would need to adjust to get the pressures to where they need to be. That would be on this line, ductwork line here. You can see that damper there. So the reason that is since this is dumping back into my HVAC return, the supply fan for the HVAC is also sucking air at the same time. So they have you put that damper in there so you can make sure that the fans in the ERV are supplying the right amount of air with the influence of the HVAC fan. If I would have elected to install the dump, I guess, supply dump line into a different spot in the house, not associated with the HVAC, I wouldn't have needed that, and essentially there isn't any calibration. They just are what they're set at. But since I did that, I need to calibrate that. Like I said, for my warm side ductwork, I used standard galvanized ductwork, 6-inch ductwork. For my cold side, I use green 6-inch drain, waste, and vent PVC pipe. I wanted that because on the outside of the house, it has to go vertical up to the eave. The rim joist right there on my house is right at the ground level, so if I would have just poked them out and put my vents there, it would have been sucking dirt or sucking air right off the ground level outside. I wanted to get it up. I think the manual even calls for it to be 6 feet off the ground, so I took it up 9 feet off the ground to the eave line of the house, so I can make sure I get good fresh air, don't get lawnmower exhaust or anything else. Then I went ahead and insulated it with I think it's R7 or R9 insulation with a vapor barrier in it. After I installed the unit, I started it up, ran it for a few days. I didn't have this insulated, and condensation, it was in the winter time, so condensation obviously formed on the cold side because those pipes were the temperature, outside temperature, so they got condensation built up on them. So the purpose of the insulation is to keep condensation from forming on those lines and keep it a vapor barrier, so you don't have any areas where cold air or air can get in contact with that cold pipe. So right on the door of the unit, it actually shows you power consumption at different heating and cooling settings. So You can see the power consumption column. It's very low for all of them, based on the CFM you're running it at. I guess for me, I'd probably, right now it's early spring, so I'm not cooling, so I would say I'm probably right here in this range, so that pretty much lines up with what it's showing, 25. One thing I didn't show you is that in the wintertime, when it has obviously the temperature and humidity sensors built into the unit, so in the wintertime, if it's very cold out, it has a automatic defrost built into it. Temperature gets below a certain level, it will shut this damper and the other damper and open this damper, and it will just recirculate air through the ERV with the house air to defrost itself. It's got a, like I said, it's got a table in the manual that explains how much it does that recirculation based on the temperature. So now that the unit's off, we're showing about 10 watts. I'll go back upstairs, show you guys the wall controller that I elected to install, give you a quick rundown on how to operate it. Turn it back on, put it in boost mode. Essentially, that will be the highest power consumption, and come back down and show you how much power it's using. So back upstairs at the wall controller. It's off right now. Like I said, when I open that door, it automatically shuts off and won't turn back on until you turn this on with the on button. So that just lit up the display. Push it again. It's turned on. Like I said, that's what I have it set at right now. 80 CFM for supply, 60 for exhaust. It shows you the outside temperature, outside relative humidity. Push this button, it'll switch to the inside. Inside we're sitting at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 47% relative humidity. I hit the boost mode. That's when it goes to 200 and 200. It runs for 20 minutes. It's like if you were to have a party or be cooking or have a smoky house, you can push that and it'll clean the house out pretty quickly. Like I said, it's pretty intuitive to set up the CFMs you want. The vent button flashes supply, set. I can raise that up, down. Goes in 20 CFM increments. It's set, switches over to the exhaust. Do the same thing there, go up or down to whatever you want. Hit set, and we're good to go. So I'll push the boost button, we'll go back downstairs and we can see how much power it's using. So there you can see it. It's 20 CFM, or sorry, 200 CFM, 200 CFM. It's boost on for 20 minutes. So right now with the boost CFM that it can run, we're at 120 watts. I would imagine it's got DC motors, so the filters get dirtier. That might be why I'm up to, what did I say, 31 watts at my lowest setting, where a month ago it was at 27. So now I'll go outside and show you what I got for supply and return on the outside of the house. So on the back side of our house, for the supply and return lines, like I said, I used 6-inch PVC. I used drain, waste, and vent. It's the green. I had to paint them, well, didn't have to. I wanted to paint them white, match the house. I still need to do another coat on this one. Ran out of paint. Like I said, when I built the house, I knew I wanted an ERV eventually. There wasn't really technology that I liked when I built the house, so I didn't do it at the time, and I didn't know how far apart to put the vents. So for the top caps, I found these aluminum louvered vents on Home Depot. They fit over the top of a 6-inch PVC pipe. The inside is louvered one direction, the outside's louvered another direction. Supposed to keep the rainwater out. I went ahead and put a 10 mesh screen, I think is what it was, on the inside of the inside louvers to keep the bugs out, anything else from getting in there. So this one, like I said, I had to angle the bottom. The angle it turned out to be was 22.5 approximately to get it out of my hole through the house, over to the other side of the window, and then vertical up to the soffit level. So from the inside of the house, they're both whatever that distance is from the edge of the window. You can't see them. Like I said, I have a ICF house. It's from the basement floor all the way to the eaves. So my window thresholds, window bucks, are almost 12 inches, so you can't see them. So in summary, overall I'm very happy with the unit. Install went good, instructions were good. It's very quiet, the power consumption's very low. Again, sitting at 80 CFM on the supply and 60 on the exhaust, and we're only using 25 watts when you subtract off what the dead load is when it's not running. As far as reliability goes, I obviously haven't had it that long. It's been good so far. I guess we'll see, but in general I think Panasonic puts out good products, reliable products. It's got DC motors. They have a 6-year warranty. The balance of the unit has a 3-year warranty. So yeah, overall I'm very pleased with the ERV. I don't know that I would change anything at this point. I guess I'll do a follow-up video if I come up with anything that I would change, or if anybody has any questions or anything else. Thanks for watching.